please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Logs, Subdate 230720.4. We struggle to keep up with trends, whether that be the orange pigment uniqueness of Just Stop Oil, or the NPC nonsense on TikTok. Does this mean we're getting old, or generally speaking is humanity just getting a lot more peculiar and or desperate? Welcome everyone to the exhibition of stupid people. Today we're going to start with some YouTube related content stuff, yes? Okay, Rev says I love my wife. Twitter, @TeamYouTube. The One Piece podcast and their co-host Steve Yerko have filed a false copyright strike against my channel. In the video, I criticized their artwork that they posted publicly on Twitter. This strike is a clear abuse of the copyright system. 4 images included. The first, hi Rev says whatever. Due to a copyright takedown notice, we have taken down your video from YouTube. This means your video can no longer be played on YouTube. You received a copyright strike. The second image, an image taken from the Steve Yerko Twitter account. The third, their Twitter account. And the fourth, the One Piece podcast have blocked the user in question, Rev. Yeah? Okay. Continuing the thread. I'm allowed to criticize what you post publicly. Horrible look from not only a fellow content creator but an artist too. Also to add on to this, there's an option to request a takedown of a video and not apply a strike. They went the extra step to add the strike. Petty behavior. I will fight it as far as I need to. Hopefully they do the smart thing and drop it. When it comes to copyright, the rules are pretty clear. The thing here is there are other systems in place that Rev says I love my wife also mentions. You can in fact reach out directly to a creator and ask them to remove it. And a lot of us will say, sure, if you ask us to remove something, we will. You don't have to go around that. Negate the whole point of open communication, transparency, honesty, integrity to simply slap another creator with a strike. It makes you look remarkably petty and like you don't understand what it means to be a creator. I would surmise based on what these images are that this second image was the one that got criticism. I don't really care. I'm not an artist. I don't care about the art part. But it was shared publicly to Twitter. It falls within the domain of criticism, critique, parody. It really does. I know there are some unique rules when it comes to ownership of images. There really are some rather interesting rules on that. But you didn't have to go and try and get them struck off the internet or take away their ability to do their job. That is childish. But there is an update to this. Uncommon YouTube dub. YouTube intervened and denied their claim. The video is reinstated and the strike removed. In the process, I also learned the LLC they filed it under. I now know 100% they don't have the licensing rights to sell their unofficial One Piece merch. ... Included are 2 images. The first is the video itself. The second is the takedown request is missing some legally required information, so we asked the claimant to provide this information in order to complete their request. Pending the response, they've reinstated the video and resolved the associated copyright strike. However, it should be noted if the claimant responds with the information needed, then they may be required to remove the video. They continue this thread by saying, also keep in mind they have the ability to refile as expressed in the email. So if they keep going, they are ignoring the fact that everyone knows they are abusing the copyright system, hid behind blocks and privating of their accounts, all because they couldn't handle criticism. PPS, it's perfectly fine to disagree with my video's message, however, abusing copyright systems to silence people criticizing content you posted publicly is shameful. That is the cardinal rule of content creators. Never abuse the system to spite your critics. If you're known as a flagger, by the way, the level of respect you may once have had diminishes significantly. One last tweet on this though from Rev. I made a video covering the timeline of events from the false copyright strike to my video's reinstation. I also share info about the podcast that filed it, YouTubers connected to it, and the copyright system, and it is linked in the tweet. Archive in the description. Go check it out if you're interested in following this from start to finish to get a perspective. My view will remain the same and consistently the same when it comes to this kind of abusive system. You could simply reach out to the creator and ask them to remove it first. If you can't even do that, if you can't be bothered to simply play by the rules, unwritten rules amongst fellow creators, your peers, then you are considered lesser. You are inferior. Your credibility, your integrity, and the respect you once had diminishes significantly. This in turn harms your brand. Given enough time, it harms you, irreparably harms you. From time to time, we creators have to humble ourselves, so we don't develop enough of an ego that we end up doing something as stupid as falsely copyright striking another person. Let's move on from YouTube copyright nonsense and instead talk about Just Stop Oil. We'll start with something tangibly connected because they're being memed by other stags who are in turn getting caught out. Take for example this gentleman here being stopped by the police wearing Just Stop Oil t-shirt. This man was on his way to go and see the British Grand Prix, Formula 1 racing basically. Very fast cars, environmentally friendly everyone. Because of the heightened concerns after what happened at Wimbledon, the Ashes, and a few other events, because they can't do it to the common stuff, no, they do it to this instead. This individual was stopped by the police. He was in turn given a stern warning from police officers after they found out, actually, he was on a stag do and his friends forced him to wear that t-shirt. He got stopped on multiple occasions by the police. I have often accused Just Stop Oil of being incredibly middle class. Here is my proof of it. The first night of the proms. It is a musical affair, an orchestral affair, and Just Stop Oil got involved in that. How desperately middle class do you dweebs want to look? A duo mounted the stage and briefly unfurled an orange banner. This is typically staged at the Royal Albert Hall. The two morons that tried to do this had attempted to address the audience before forcibly being removed. This happened after the interval and targeted the event because of the BBC's underwhelming coverage of the climate emergency. A BBC spokesman had to confirm there was no disruption to the concert or broadcast during the few seconds the protesters were on stage. I have queries. How did they manage to get in with a sign and not be noticed? It is quite an impressive feat on the face of it, but let's face it here. If you're going to go and attend to events, you've got more chance of getting a more visceral response from the plebeians you need on your side if you went and protested inside a McDonald's, or a Greggs, a Primark, a Poundland perhaps, although I'm sure many of you don't understand the novel concept of things costing £1, mostly because Poundland themselves don't really do that much anymore. Cost of living really has changed that. When this happened, Just Stop Oil tweeted, "We cannot afford to fiddle while Rome burns. Just Stop Oil disrupt the proms." And then they describe what happens next. The problem they have is they have a very binary interpretation of the world. It is possible to appreciate music and simultaneously care for and actively help the world. It really is possible. Apparently those that promote Just Stop Oil lack the ability to multitask. Appreciating culture and art is fine. It's not something I generally appreciate, art especially. Music, yes, and oh, but music is a form of art. Be that pedantic shit. I'm going to downvote your comment. The point still stands, but that's because I'm one of the working class. I don't generally care about art pieces or museums that much. My main focus is on working and working and working because I like to work. That's how I enjoy my life, doing my bit for the world in my own little way. For example, solar. That's something I've been exploring of late and is in turn yielding a positive outcome. However, to do what you are doing is to outright state it is not possible to enjoy life because you cannot enjoy it while simultaneously the world is suffering, as if many are not doing that anyway, as if there aren't initiatives in place helping. The crux of the problem is humanity is far too dependent on oil and gas, and for the seismic change Just Stop Oil seem to think the world needs would cost millions, maybe even 1 billion lives, because there would be a massive shift and there would be so many problems created in the face of it. To find a way to transition is the only viable solution, but you need many countries on board to make it happen. Many of the countries you need on board refuse to be on board. China, Russia, South Korea, India, Pakistan. Do I need to continue? Hell, I'll throw Germany and France in here as well because of their brown coal nonsense. I don't know how many times I have to keep telling you the UK isn't even inside the top 15, and we're one of the smallest countries. If you want to implement legitimate change, you need to implement it elsewhere to actually lead to definitive change. So next, as a big boxing fan, I can't not talk about this. Tyson Fury, WBC heavyweight champion, who, let's face it, has had one legit defense since winning the world title, and that was his mandatory Dillian White. Because he couldn't secure a fight with Usyk, even though Usyk agreed to all terms. Couldn't get a fight with Joshua because it turns out Joshua knew the money was worth more if they fought later after Joshua had a few more wins under his name. And he was unable to secure fights with anyone else really inside the top 10. Has decided to go down the route of former UFC World Heavyweight Champion Francis Ngannou, a guy who was signed to a mixed martial arts promotion that I'd never heard of. I'm familiar with about 4 or 5, this one was not one of them. It's hilarious to me that Tyson Fury was spending all this time talking about how everyone else is ducking him. Yet when an offer was touted worth hundreds of millions, he got cold feet. He decided not to play ball. Hell, an idea of a 4-man tournament was suggested. Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk, and Tyson Fury. The other 3 agreed to the idea of it. Tyson did not, even though it was worth insane amounts of money. Yet he will claim simultaneously in one sentence, it's not about the money, but he's only interested in the big money fights. So he's going down the route of what can only be considered a rather charitable exhibition fight with no knockdown. How embarrassing for the sport is it that the most prestigious title, the WBC belt held by one of the best of his generation, who is actively going out of his way to duck the best of his generation, puts that belt in a position of disrepute, discrediting it by fighting a mixed martial artist as if we haven't already seen this before, in the form of Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor. But at least with Floyd Mayweather, he wasn't defending any world titles. He was doing it because it was the money fight, and it was strictly that. It was a professional fight. Whether the fight itself was professional or not, you can debate that yourselves. The point still stands. At least Floyd didn't defend any world title against Conor McGregor. And at this point, we don't even know if it's going to be sanctioned as a professional fight or whether the belt is considered up for grabs, which it shouldn't be. But then again, Tyson Fury decided to defend his world title against Derek Chisora, a guy who is, while quite popular and lovable, also not worthy of the title shot. In a third fight that was beyond boring. Tyson Fury has talent leagues above anyone else in the division, and for some reason he makes it look like he's afraid of Alexander Usyk. Because Alexander Usyk, while just a cruiserweight who has somehow managed to big himself up to heavyweight, quite well I might add, Alexander Usyk has amateur pedigree equal or perhaps superior to that of Tyson. The only difference really is Tyson is bigger, taller. If they were the same height, I think it would be a 50-50 fight. But because Tyson's bigger, I still favour him to win. He doesn't need to fight Deontay Wilder, and AJ, I'll be honest, is on the downward turn since losing to Andy Ruiz. So there is no one left really, beyond Usyk, for him to actually fight and have a legit challenge fighting. Think about all the clauses that Tyson wanted introduced and then removed. Tyson wanted the fight not to happen, and is now fighting a mixed martial artist instead. What a joke. Part of me thought the only reason they were doing this is because this would be a litmus test for the Gypsy King to go and take his abilities to Riyadh, because tax, but also because more money. And if he's entertaining enough, people will want to see him there more, which in turn means the power then goes to Queensberry Promotions and Top Rank, I think, as opposed to it being predominantly Eddie Hearn, because Eddie Hearn's the only one that's done fights over there. He's really the only one, of the big guys anyway. Essentially a litmus test to see whether or not Queensberry Top Rank can actually host these fights over there and make decent money from it, meaning they then can control the terms for other people to fight them, because apparently Tyson is the A-side in all situations, which I don't agree with in the slightest. He doesn't really sell out venues anywhere near as big, and his pay-per-view numbers aren't great either. Certainly when compared to someone like, obviously, Anthony Joshua. And I'm not a huge AJ fan, I'm really not. But the numbers don't lie here. Tyson does, though. Moving on. To finish, I want to talk about the DCU. I did last week when we spoke about The Flash. This time I saw something on my phone. This here, you see, yeah, okay. James Gunn is cancelling Ezra Miller's DCU project after The Flash becomes a bigger box office disaster than Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam. Last week we spoke about the fact that if you put Flash and Shazam together, they still made less than Black Adam, and Black Adam was considered a disaster. I disagree with this, because at least Black Adam made profit. Apparently, going where the money is, even with somebody pulling out a rather obscure character compared to the more mainstay characters, going anti-hero but being a bit late to the party, it took longer than it did to make Venom after all, and Venom was fantastic, was still not enough to make enough of a profit to justify a sequel, or to continue the story with Henry Cavill's Superman featuring perhaps in the sequel to Black Adam, which many of the fans wanted after seeing the end credits scene where Superman and Black Adam go to have a little talk. Currently, The Flash rests at 64% on Rotten Tomatoes. The film's financial prospects are expected to be a loss exceeding $200 million due to an extensive marketing campaign. Thing with that is, you can market a movie as much as you like with as many videos on YouTube and social media promoting it with trailers, but your main star is haram. On top of that, they're not doing interviews because of you guys. Apparently, one of your spin doctors, one of your optics guys, gals, thems, didn't know how best to utilize the strengths of Ezra Miller to get this film promoted. And just to add a little lol to this, before Gunn and Safran took over, it had emerged from the studios in October of last year that Flash 2 already had a script made. I doubt that's going anywhere anytime soon unless they really want to dig their heels in and try their best on a sequel and beg Ezra Miller to take less money and consider not being as present anywhere ever unless it's to do their damn work. A final point to add to this, and it's quite the lofty achievement for Ezra Miller, is that this film is considered to be the biggest flop in superhero movie history, and that is because it lost $200 million. The funny thing to me is, the movie isn't actually bad. It's not horrendous. It's not up there with the, let's say, vast majority of the CW, and I liked the CW, and then it decided to shit on all the fans and the cast. The only hope the Flash has of appearing in future projects is on HBO Max, and the numbers would need to be quite something special to justify using Ezra Miller going forward, although they really should have heeded the warnings and simply recast, because it would have been safer. Then again, DCU don't know how to make a superhero movie. Everyone knows that. I didn't say DCEU, and I didn't say the Snyderverse, although that can be argued as well. It's very debatable, very contentious. Yes, I wonder how well Aquaman 2 does now. You have me intrigued. Oh, and just before we finish, I was going to do something about a recent trend on TikTok, but I think I'm going to do a standalone video on that instead. Keep your eyes peeled. It's cringy.